drawn comparisons between his success and Brexit. To what extent is this similar to the phenomenon that drove the Brexit results, do you think?
Well, the political revolution of 2016 is that in two massive campaigns, the underdogs beat the establishment. We did it in Brexit, and Trump did it last night in the USA. And that's despite, the commentators, the media, the established politicians, and including in the Republican Party, most senior Republicans didn't even back Donald Trump, and yet he did it.
I mean, what would you say to some British voters who might be anxious about the kind of president that Mr. Trump will be?
Well, I would say this, that at last we have an American president who actually likes our country. Obama and Clinton have treated us with disdain. They've thought we're a little country, not really very relevant anymore, and very happy to see us have our laws made somewhere else, our court judgments made elsewhere. Trump's mother was Scottish. He values the special relationship, and he's told me that himself.
How will this result change, if at all, the lives of ordinary British people, do you think?
That remains to be seen. How our lives get affected directly by a US president remains to be seen. I suspect we're far less likely to get involved in foreign wars under Donald Trump than we would be under Hillary Clinton. And it's very interesting that whilst Trump is negative about free trade with countries like China, he's actually very positive about the United Kingdom. Famously, Obama said we'd be at the back of the queue for a trade deal if we voted for Brexit. Trump has said we'd be at the front of the queue. So I think our relationship with America through Trump will be a lot better than it ever could have been with Clinton.
Mr. Trump campaigned on a number of promises that are going to be probably quite difficult to follow through on, to deliver on. For example, the building of a wall along the Mexican border and the mass deportation of immigrants. If he's unable to deliver on those promises, do you think there's a risk that his kind of politics, or politics in general, will lose credibility?
Well, there's no question that Trump voters, rather like Brexit voters, want action. They don't want their vote, their overturning of the establishment, to get kicked into the long grass. As far as the wall's concerned with Mexico, well, Bush built a 600-mile fence. So it's not actually as outlandish as it sounds to begin with. And when it comes to how they deal with immigrants, he has never proposed deporting immigrants. He's proposed deporting illegal immigrants, something that in theory our government does too.
I mean, to go back to that, if he does fail on some of his promises, is that bad for his style of politics, though, do you think?
I think the whole point about insurgent politics is it's called a protest. And yes, there is an element of anger amongst those voters, but it's about more than that. It's about offering different policy solutions, and voters need to see that what they voted for actually happens. So there's no question there is going to be big pressure on Trump to deliver.
You know him quite well. Is Mr. Trump going to be as sort of brash and undiplomatic in the White House as he has been on the campaign trail?
Sometimes with people, there is a public face, and then the private side is a little bit different. I mean, I would accept that on the platform, Trump is pretty brash. He is, pretty out there. Actually, in private, one-to-one, I found him amenable, and I found that he will listen. He's going to find that the enormity of the job that he's got means he's got to surround himself with a lot of people who will take responsibility for putting into action his policies. The key to Trump's success or otherwise is which people does he choose.
Is this electoral success part of a sort of global revolution? And if so, where's it going to go next?
Well, certainly 2016 is the year of political revolution. Two massive insurgencies that have overtaken and overcome the establishment with Brexit and the US elections. I suspect that over the next year or two, we're going to see more of that in Europe. I think there is a big move away from a kind of politics that doesn't really recognise the nation state, that is happy to have decisions made at a higher level, that doesn't recognise the importance of immigration in people's minds and of the shape of their communities. And I suspect we're going to see some big shocks in Europe over the course of the next couple of years.
Do you want to make any predictions there, or specifically?
Well, I mean, it's whether it's going to be Italy, whether it's going to be France, whether it's going to be Hungary, the Netherlands, Denmark, I don't know. But there is a really mass popular uprising right across Europe against the Eurozone and against Mrs. Merkel's migrant policy. And I honestly don't think that we'll sit here in 5 years' time with the European Union in the same shape that it is today.
Do you think Mr. Trump genuinely believed all along that he would become president one day?
It's rather like asking me, did I think Brexit was going to happen? I wanted it to, but I was quite surprised when it did. And late last night, when I phoned into Trump Tower to the party and spoke to some friends that were in there, yes, they were celebrating, but I think they were almost as bewildered as the Democrats. You can want something to happen, but when it does, sometimes it's a bit of a surprise.
Would you relocate to the States and work with Mr. Trump if you were invited to do so?
Look, I think all of this is somewhat premature. Ideas that I'm going to become America's, ambassador to the European Union, I think it's all a bit premature. What I would say is this, though, that I do have a relationship with Trump and his team. It's very important that the British government gets on with this guy, that we crack on, start to talk about trade deals, start to talk about NATO and its future and how it's going to work together. And if I can do anything to help that relationship between the UK and America via Donald Trump, I will do so.
Terrific. Final question. Do you think the UK needs a Donald Trump?
We got Theresa May, and she sounds really tough at the moment. And if she delivers on all the things she says, then Brexit will mean Brexit, and I'll be very happy. Trouble is, the history suggests that it might not quite be the case.